has a gun to my head.
Want to deal with him? You want to deal with me?
I gotta go. It's flammable. I ain't no damn scientist.
Bad Boys 4, Bad Boys Ride or Die, comes out June 7th. This is the fourth Bad Boys film. It brings back Martin Lawrence. It brings back post-slap Will Smith. It even brings back Joey Pants in. I have no idea whether he's going to be alive or dead or how big a role he's going to have, but Joe Pantoliano is coming back. And, of course, I think the girl that I think a lot of people have a crush on, Vanessa Hudgens, in some way, shape, or form. So this one looks good-ish. That's why I'm including on the list. But Bad Boys 3 was not good. It was pretty freaking awful in my estimation. But tell me, what do you think? What do you think about the premise for Bad Boys Ride or Die? Will Smith and Martin Lawrence get set up. They get framed, and then they're on the run. What do you think about the setup for this film? Is this good, bad, or eh?
I mean, I'm not the biggest Bad Boys fan to begin with. I like the first one. I don't really care for the second one. I thought the third one was all right, but disposable. I kind of feel the same way about this one. Disposable. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that this is a franchise that has much legs, personally. I don't think it's talked about very much either anymore nowadays. And I think that the premise for this, it sounds generic. It sounds like a movie I've seen many times, just with Will Smith and Martin Lawrence in there doing their banter that they do in the Bad Boys movies. That I'm sure it'll be entertaining enough, but I don't see myself walking out of Bad Boys Ride or Die and thinking about it the next day, if that if that makes sense. I think it'll be entertaining in the moment, and then I probably won't go back to it very often. But who knows? Maybe it'll end up being the best of the franchise. Maybe it'll reinvent the action genre.
So let's talk about the good things that we see about this, about what we know about the cast, about the setup, about the premise. What's good about Bad Boys Ride or Die?
I liked the addition of Vanessa Hudgens in Bad Boys for Life. So the fact that they're bringing her back, I think that's good for the movie. Obviously, Will Smith and Martin Lawrence are great in these roles. They're great together. So I think that they're going to be a positive of the movie too. And I believe they have the directors coming back from For Life as well. I think it's the same ones, if I'm remembering correctly. So I thought they did a good job with the third film, and I'm sure they'll do a good job here as well. I just think it is in some ways a little late. I mean, when was For Life? For Life was like 2016.
It was 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah,
it wasn't that long ago. It was.
Oh wow, it feels so much longer than that.
Yeah,
I guess that's the pandemic.
It does. It wasn't all that long ago. It was just a couple years ago, and I remember going into that film, and when the Simpson Bruckheimer banner came up at the beginning of the film, because Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer used to be super producers in Hollywood. They used to make all of the really cool action Michael Bay films back in the 80s and 90s. And then Don Simpson passed away, and so Jerry Bruckheimer went off on his own and started making even more outlandish, huge action films. But when Bad Boys 3 hit theaters, I'd completely forgotten that was a Simpson Bruckheimer production. And so when the banner came up at the beginning of the film, I was just like, wow, I haven't seen that in theaters in 20 years. And that really, that made me go, aw. But it also made me go, okay, good. We're getting back to the 90s. We're getting back to classic Will Smith. We're giving Martin Lawrence a starring role and some well-deserved cash. And then the rest of the movie happened. And it's funny because for me, one of the bad things about this is that they're bringing back the director from Bad Boys for Life. I like the idea of the director, and he's done some great stuff. It's actually a directing team this time out, and I like the idea of what they did in Bad Boys for Life. I just the execution I didn't like, and I think you were kind when you said it was disposable. So I don't want to like dunk on a bad film. I want to focus on this film. I think you're right. It feels kind of, and talking a little bit about the bad, it feels like the premise that we've seen before. Like, I kind of feel like after watching the trailer for this film that I've already seen the film,
Right.
which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but there's nothing in there that makes me think I have to go watch this in theaters. I mean, I like Bad Boys 1 and 2, 1 more than 2, although I did love Tia Leone in Bad Boys 2. I love buddy cop comedies, but there's something about this that does have a little bit of energy, and it is kind of and it leads me into the meh category, I think, a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, I think the thing that is the meh for me is the fact that Will Smith and Martin Lawrence's characters, at least on the surface, don't seem like they've changed much in 30 years.
That's a good point. Their shtick. Is their shtick getting old
Yeah.
kind of thing?
And not that you have to, not that you have to grow up, not that you have to age, not that you have to mature and all that kind of stuff, but it feels, I mean, they both look great for their age.
Yeah.
But it just kind of feels like they were doing this 30 years ago, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, to a certain extent, I think Ryan Reynolds has been doing the same thing for 25 years, and I still love that. But when you look at the fact that they're both police detectives, and at least one of them has a family and children and adult children, would they really be running around talking exactly like they were when they were 25?
Exactly. Yeah.
I just, so that part of it, I think, has a little bit of the factor for me. I don't know. How about you? Does it kind of ring true, or does that have not sort of the appeal? Is that sort of the for you?
No, I think you're right. I think I very much lean to meh on this one. I think an added thing for this too is, especially with the theater, where the theaters are at right now with audiences and trying to get them in the doors. This isn't really a movie that is, I think, appealing to the general audience. I mean, I believe in June as well, we're gonna have Beverly Hills Cop 4 on Netflix coming out, which, I mean, if people can just sit at home and watch Beverly Hills 4, and then this one is in theaters. This I am an advocate for the theaters. I want movies to go to the theaters. I totally want that. But when I think of this kind of movie, I'm like, why am I not watching this on Amazon Prime? Because they've kind of conditioned us in that way. I mean, Roadhouse went to Amazon Prime just this past year, and there's no shortages of movies like this. And I think people who are hardcore like movie goers, yeah, we'll go see this in theaters for sure. But I don't really see like my dad going to see this, which is like, he's like, if Avatar's coming out, yeah, I'm gonna go see Avatar. But Bad Boys, and it's gonna be somewhere in like a couple weeks, like 2 months, it'll be on streaming. I think many people will just decide to wait. And I just don't really feel hype or any kind of excitement for this one. Like online, on Twitter, no one's really talking about it. I even forgot it was really coming out next month, to be honest. So I'm met on this. I'll probably end up seeing it, and I'm sure it'll be entertaining, but I don't think it's gonna be anything special.
So, do you use your dad as a litmus test for movies like this, as to whether or not you're going to go see it, or judging excitement?
No, I'll definitely go and see it. I'll pretty much go see almost anything. I just love going to the theater. I'm one of those people, right? That like it. This is you don't have to worry about getting me in there. But my dad kind of more so represents the more general audience in my mind, because, well, I grew up, my dad was the one who took me to theaters. My dad is the one who got me to love the movie theater, and like, we would go all the time, and now with streaming and everything, and same with my grandparents. My grandparents would take me to theaters all the time, but like, even they're tricky to get into the theater doors nowadays. So like, these people who kind of, growing up, they were my uh relatable movie going lovers, and their age has to do with it too. But like, now it's harder for them to get them into the movie theater unless it's something they really want to see. So that's kind of how I use them as a test for. And yeah, I look at Twitter and I look at the online social media to see what are people talking about, what's the excitement levels at, and I haven't seen anything for Bad Boys or Ride or Die.
So you've already said you're going to go see this movie, but is this movie a good, a bad, or a eh?
This movie is work. I'm gonna do it just for the channel mostly. But yeah, it's it's meh. This movie's meh.
Yeah, for me too. It is sadly a meh. I love Simpson Bruckheimer as a production team. I used to like Will Smith, and then slap.
Mm-hmm.
And then Martin Lawrence. You know, I like Martin Lawrence. I loved his films in the 90s. I liked his sitcom. But yeah, I don't know. There's just something missing or off about this to where I'm just sort of a
Doesn't it feel
meh.
kind of tired? Like kind of going back to what you were saying with like, they were 25 and it was kind of like it had the energy and it was fun, but now they're like what in their like late 50s and they're still running around and doing this and like doesn't something about it just feel kind of tired?
Well, and it's, the funny thing is it's not the premise per se, because I think you can do that and make it convincing and make it fun.
Mission Impossible's
But
done it in almost every single one of their movies.
yeah, so it's nothing about the premise per se. It's just when I see the trailers, it just feels like they're going through the motions, and it's kind of, I've seen it all before.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't feel like there's anything fun or new in the trailers that's going to grab me, that's going to say you have to come see this in theaters, watch it opening night, opening weekend, there's just that it factor is kind of missing for me. It doesn't look bad, it just kind of sort of looks
Yeah.
which was actually part of the inspiration for doing this entire video. So if it does turn out to be then that could be if this video series is successful, then I will owe Bad Boys 4 for inspiring this on my channel. Ding! I need sound effects.